Hello and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Microsoft Mentors is designed to lift the lid on the career journeys of the most successful leaders in the Microsoft ecosystem and to share their knowledge, insights, experience and expertise with the wider Microsoft community, offering mentorship at scale. Each week I'll be having open and honest conversations with technology leaders, business owners and technical experts from across the world of Microsoft tech and unpicking their past routes to success, their current models for personal and professional growth and advising you on how to develop the next steps of your cloud career. Stay tuned every week, every Wednesday at midday on LinkedIn Live and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's grow together. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Today, on our first episode of this series, I'm honoured to be joined by the one, the only John Savill. John has forged an amazing career in the Microsoft world, having really started to get deep into Microsoft technologies when he moved over to America. He has since grown through different roles within Microsoft in the US and has become one of the most recognisable faces when it comes to Azure and Microsoft Cloud technologies on YouTube and across a number of different social media platforms, helping everyone in the Microsoft community to learn and understand Microsoft technologies better and keep up with the rate of change within Microsoft Cloud. There's some amazing top tips in here from how to learn and develop your knowledge in Azure and Microsoft Cloud, and also how to interact with Azure, how to approach it with customers, and how to improve your technical skill sets. It's a brilliant episode. I hope you all enjoy it. John Savill. Hello and welcome to Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Today I am joined by the one, the only John Savill.
Hey, thank you for having me on the podcast.
No problem at all. This is our first transatlantic podcast as well. So we're at sort of 3:30 here in the UK. What time is it over stateside for you, John?
So it's 7:30 a.m., but I've been up for quite a long time. And I guess it's disappointing. Your first American guest, and yeah, you'd never guess it. It's I'll try and work on my text and I'll throw some yars and fixings in as we go through the session.
Absolutely. So as always with Microsoft Mentors, it's a bit of an exploration of people's careers within the Microsoft ecosystem. And the starting point that I always like to start with is, I guess, just to get a bit of a feel, John, in terms of what was the initial spark for you in terms of IT and tech? Were you a developer in your bedroom? Were you putting together your own laptops? What did that sort of initial spark in tech look like for you?
Yeah, so I started off with a ZX Spectrum. So this was a British thing. So I had a ZX Spectrum. Then we got the 48K version. And I enjoyed, we had basic. So we had the special keys on the Spectrum. You couldn't even type in commands. You had to press a certain key for print, a certain key for go to. So I enjoyed, obviously, like games as well, but I enjoyed creating programs on the ZX Spectrum. And then it really just evolved from there. We got like a Dragon 32, we added an Amiga. And then my dad brought home a PC. And it was really when he brought home the PC that I bought my first ever book, and it was called Learning C. And I started to teach myself C, and I enjoyed the programming and making it actually do something. So I guess that was the trigger of all of it. It's just I always had computers since I was a kid. I always enjoyed understanding what made it tick and trying to achieve and make it do something and learning how to do that. And I was just very fortunate that I guess that love translated into jobs and my whole career and my hobby, as it turned out. So,
yeah, it's interesting. A couple of key themes there. You mentioned a lot of leaders that I've spoken to over the last few days and weeks are similar. So starting out on those sort of devices, getting a book about C programming and using it as a way to build out for, their gaming hobby and building more powerful devices to game on as well. So sounds like it's a fairly typical sort of journey into tech. Very different to what I imagine that the first sort of roads into tech will be now for people that are, 12, 13, 14, 15, their technology access is very different to what yours would have been.
Right. I mean, it's just so different, right? Everyone now has so much tech around them. And I don't think you even realize you're dealing, like when I was a kid, it was like, oh, I'm working on a computer. I'm working on my Spectrum. It was this very specific thing. Now you're surrounded by the technology, be it on a phone, a tablet, the TV, everything is technology. Everything is interactive. And I think, right, it's just there's a certain expectation now for what technology is. And it's taken for granted a lot of the time. I think it's just there. And then you introduce the generative AI stuff. And I think that line blurs even more. Like there gets to a point when you can't tell, am I talking to a computer? Am I talking to a person? That's an interesting situation. And you can be in technology and not even know it. So I think that line is completely blurred now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially with the Gen AI side of things. You know, it's so close now to reality that it will get to a point where, you know, you're watching a movie, you're, you know, playing a game or whatever, and you just don't quite know which part is reality and what's been filmed and what's actually just been made by Gen AI.
Yep, 100%.
So obviously that sort of early passion started to, I guess, evolve and got to a point where we all get to and we have to start working for a living. And what was your route into the world of work? Did you do apprenticeships? Did you do university? What did that look like for you?
So I got really lucky. So I actually started full-time work at 18, and it was a company called Logica. And they had this unique program that every 2 years they would hire someone straight out of school. And they paid for that person to do, it was a HNC, the Higher National Certificate, then Higher National Diploma. And for me, they let me also then go and do a degree as part of it. But they paid for it, but it was like my evenings and things where I'd actually go and do the studying. But yeah, so Logica would take once every 2 years this person in, and I got fortunate that I was that person. And you were hired as a VAX VMS systems administrator, which sounds
Okay.
quite grand, until you realize primarily what that meant initially was you would go and fetch the printouts from the basement for the developers and sort of drop them off to their desks. You would go and change the backup tapes every night. You had these like square tapes that you put and for the backup things, but they were awesome. Like they was supported everything you want to do. I went through the VAX VMS system administrator courses, and you get to learn. Then you start doing the development. They used Macro 32 and assembler, so it wasn't you were using C or anything like that. This was like real deep in the basics of the computer stuff you were doing. But it was also there that I got introduced to Windows NT. You had this
Yeah.
Windows NT box sitting in the corner. I didn't even know it was Windows NT. You did the whole Control Alt Delete thing, and something different happened. And then I just started to dig into it, and that's where the passion started from the Windows NT and everything else. And I tried to learn and learn, and you would go on the news groups, which was the way you interacted with people back then. We're talking, well, over 30 years ago. It was news groups, and you'd ask questions and people would help and you would answer. And as you learn, you would then start answering other people's questions. And that's
Yeah.
really what triggered me to initially create ntfaq.com, because there were these frequently asked questions, and Microsoft didn't have the knowledge base back then. So I sort of created just this site to try and help people learn stuff. And it was fun, and it kicked off my learning to try and explain things to other people. And that's really been consistent for everything I've ever done. So yeah, Logica was my step into the technology, VAX VMS. And then after Logica, I went and worked for Deutsche Bank, and
Okay.
it was all VAX VMS. But then by then I'm more established. I could do more programming, and I designed their financial messaging middleware system for all of the UK. And that was actually running on Sun Solaris, talking to an Oracle database. So still no Windows. Like Windows was my
Yeah.
hobby. It was kind of a passion thing, but it was not being used in any of my work. For the first 10 years of my life, Windows was only a hobby. It was never part of my job. So I was writing on Sun Solaris, multi-threaded to deal with the different transactions coming in. I was talking to an Oracle database, and it broadens. So if you learn all these different things, you start to find out, well, they are related. The concepts translate over when you're trying to think about the transactions that are going on and what do I need to consider. I'm locking things, and it's a great learning journey. But yeah, it was all hobby. Microsoft was my hobby thing for the first 10 years of my career.
Yeah, interesting that, isn't it? Given where you're at now in your career and your life. So when did you think, when was the time that Microsoft started becoming more of a prevalent technology in your working life? What sort of role did that look like, and what sort of Microsoft technologies were you involved with at the start?
Yeah, so that actually happened when I moved to America. So it was no Microsoft at all in my professional life. And then I moved to America, and the company that sort of sponsored at that point your work visa and then my green card, well, they wanted me because at that time NTFAQ had become quite established. I'd written some books and magazine articles. So I had somewhat of a little bit of a brand, and they liked that. And so they brought me over, and that's when I was part of a Microsoft practice. So when I moved to the States, I was part of a small company's Microsoft practice. Then I led that practice. And then they were acquired by EMC as part of their Microsoft practice. But that's where it really became my job. And of course, then it was Windows servers, domain controllers, Exchange servers, SQL servers. There was no virtualization really at this point. It was all planning out those physical systems for the organizations, working out how they fit together. SCCM was a big thing, and all of the system center suite. So it's when I moved to the States that it then still was my hobby, but then it also became my job. And so that was a big turning point when I moved to America.
Yeah, and where I think there's a really interesting lesson there is that, if there are people that are keen to get into a particular technology space, even if they're not doing that day to day in their working life, there's lots of stuff that you can do outside of work that actually at some point will facilitate a move towards that technology.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's very unlikely that say, hey, I want to be in this field, so I can just walk into that field. And so what I always recommend to people, like, if you care about something, if you want to be doing something, then find a way to start doing it. Create your own project, create your own thing you're trying to achieve. Make one up if there isn't a real one, but find some way that you want to actually learn and put into practice that thing. And then you'll actually get experience with it. And once you've got enough experience, and then if you maybe start trying to help other people with that, if you start sharing what you've done, well, then you have a body of work. You have examples. You can speak with intelligence when you're asked about it. That not is theory. You've actually done some experience. So you know the things that don't work. You know the lessons you've learned with it. And so now I can actually apply that in a useful way. So 100%, it's unrealistic to think for most people, you're just going to walk into the thing you want to do. You have to put in the effort to go and find a way to learn that thing, find a way to use that thing. And then hopefully, if you put in enough effort and you just keep at it, then you'll actually be able to go and translate that knowledge and experience you've gained into the thing you actually want to do. And I think that's obviously the goal for most people is we want to enjoy our work. And so
Yeah,
if I can really invest time in myself, and that's the always thing you think about, you have to prioritize investing in the thing you care about. You always talk about how you want to have this vision, you have this thing you want to do, and you can visualize in your mind of where you want to be, but it's not going to happen by magic. Like, you have to put in the work to take steps towards where you want to be. So have that idea of what job I want, of what I want to be doing, but then make it real. It's no good wishing for it. Set aside half hour, 1 hour every day and work on that thing. Take steps towards it. And it's never smooth, but
no,
you don't really want it to be smooth, right? You don't learn much when things work or you succeed straight away. There's very little accomplishment if you just achieve something straight away. Like, we learn things the best when we try and do it and it doesn't work. Because then you have to start digging around and you try other things, but you learn that thing so much better than if it had just worked the first time. So don't get discouraged. And they always talk about, hey, I didn't fail 100 times. I just learned 100 things that didn't work. So just
yeah,
keep at it, try it a different way, and eventually you'll get to that goal. But have a very clear idea of where you want to be and make effort towards it.
absolutely. And I think you see that, not just in, the Microsoft world, but across tech and across business. I think, Jeff Bezos has been quoted hundreds of times saying the amount of Amazon products that have failed is 10 times more than the amount of Amazon products that we all know and love and work with. The Amazon phone, their tablet, things like that. It's about trying things, trying to enter a market, trying to, if it's your career, do one thing. It's not always going to work out. It's not always going to be perfect. But as long as you're taking steps, then the learning and the lessons that you're getting along the way ultimately will help you towards your end goal at whatever point it gets to that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think someone was quoted, it was Michael Jordan, and they were like, "You're the greatest basketball player that ever lived." And he was like, "You're just talking about the successes." Because I've missed 10,000 shots on my way to becoming the greatest basketball player in the world. You don't just achieve it, it's the things that didn't work out initially along the way that help you get to that final place. And also realize you may be pioneering something. People will always doubt. So ignore, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I've got this huge thing about the rules he has, like ignore the naysayers. Don't be too outwardly expressive of your goal. Other people don't need to know or care about what you want to do. You know where you want to be. Ignore what other people think. Everything's impossible till someone does it. So believe in yourself. Believe that you can achieve this thing. And I fully believe that. I never think anything's impossible. I think if I put my mind to it, it can be achieved. And I think that's key. Believe in yourself and keep that belief. That is how you achieve.
Absolutely. So you end up stateside, you join the business and the Microsoft practice, end up working with EMC after acquisition. After that EMC role, was that when you then landed into the mothership, into Microsoft, or was there a bit in between that?
It was. Yep, no, that's when I landed into the mothership. So as part of that partnership, I would work more and more with the Microsoft teams. And eventually they were like, well, look, why don't you come over and work with us? And it was as a TSP, I think technical specialist was the role at the time. Yeah. And I was a data center specialist. So I was working on Windows Server, but at this time, Hyper-V, I think that's right. Hyper-V had started to kick off. And so I was doing a lot with the virtualization things. I was still doing the NTFAQ. So I was still doing ntfaq.com as kind of a hobby. I was still doing books and articles. And I would do occasionally little videos just to help explain something. But it was the TSP role, and I was there for 5 years. And that's where you really started to get a lot more customer interactions and a lot more rapidly. Because in the roles prior to that, it was mainly big projects. And so you'd be with a customer, but for 4 months or 6 months. Whereas the move to the TSP was about quickly gaining a certain trust with the customer and then getting to the root of what they cared about. Like, what was their requirement? And that's always paramount, right? So I never liked the idea that, okay, we have this widget. We need the customer to use this widget. I think that's horrible. I think what's important is to understand the widgets you have available to you. So the tools in your tool belt, and then you want to understand what the customer cares about. And hopefully, if you're working for a good company and you have a good tool set, if you just focus on solving the problem, your tools will be part of that solution. So you don't worry about, okay, I need to get this widget being used. It's like, okay, what's the requirement of the customer? And I'm going to bring these tools. But it was very rapid fire. So you would work with a customer maybe for a few days, maybe a week or something. So you had to develop that mind muscle to very quickly be able to establish the rapport and then be able to understand what mattered to them, what they were trying to achieve, and then help them. And help them, hopefully, with the tools you had in your tool belt, be it Windows or Hyper-V or whatever that might have ended up being. But it helped teach that idea of how do you quickly get to what does the customer care about and how do I make them successful? Because that fundamentally is at the root of it. If you gain that customer trust and if you focus on solving their problem, well, then your solutions will flow with that. And the customer will see that. They'll see that you help them and they'll want you to engage with them on other things in the future. So I think that's a very important focus is don't try and sell something. People hate to be sold to. Like if you've ever gone and bought a car, if you go into that car lot and the salesman runs over to you and say, hey, let me show you this car. Let me show you this thing. Like, go please fall
Get
down
away.
somewhere, right? But you like buying a car. And so there's a very different experience being you hate to be sold to, but you like to buy. And so the key point is help them, but don't just try and push something. I think that's fundamental to really all customer interactions. Help them achieve what they care about, and that will drive the success.
Yeah, I think that there is an inherent danger, isn't there, within the tech space, because a lot of the time everyone that works in the tech space is passionate about the technology and they want to be working with, the most leading edge, the most cutting edge technology, and sometimes get blinded by that to follow a certain technology track because that's where they want to get to and that's what they want to be working on. But like you say, it's all about understanding, well, what's the root cause, what's the business case, what's the problem with the customer, how are we going to give them a solution for that business need, and then bring in the technology behind it rather than the other way around.
Yeah, 100%. And realize sometimes the customer is in that trap as well. So you'll get a
Yeah.
customer that sees the latest trend. It's like, we need this. We need widget because widget V2 is phenomenal. We need widget V2. And often a customer would come to you with a solution without really understanding why it would be beneficial and if it's even beneficial. And so that was always a key point. Like you would get the scenario where, hey, we need your help in how we would implement whatever it is. But you'd still always take it a step back. Like if you're working with a customer and you don't know why you're doing something, if you don't understand the requirement that drove what you're doing, you're really destined to fail because you're not going to be able to architect it correctly because you don't know why you're doing it. You're going to have this very generic idea. So you always want to be able to take it a step back and you can be like, oh, okay, fantastic. Help me understand. Help me understand what this will achieve for you and take steps back so you get the requirements out of them that's driving their belief that they need this shiny widget thing. And it maybe they absolutely do, and it's absolutely the right solution. But make sure you do understand because maybe there's a different widget. Maybe there's a choice you need to make in the implementation of the architecture because based on what you're hearing. Maybe the widget does solve the problem, but it's actually not the most efficient. It's not the most cost optimal. They don't need this huge large language model generative AI. Maybe we can just use a small language model because they have this very fixed focus set of requirement. Maybe it's not even generative AI at all. Maybe I can just use a more basic service would still meet what they're trying to do. So it's important to never just take what is given to you as the right thing. I always want to go back and understand. And again, help me understand is phenomenal. It's not aggressive. It's, hey, I'm just trying to understand what you're doing so I can help you better. So just walk me through how you got here. And along the way, as a customer explains something, sometimes as they explain it, they'll be like, well, hold on, wait, maybe this, if you walk through things, I think that's really powerful. And I love the whiteboard. Like when I'm talking to a customer, I'll often like share my iPad screen and I'll be drawing on it as I'm talking to them because it's all about senses, right? If you're just talking to someone, okay, I'm hearing something. But if I can also be writing the things down, it helps reinforce the more senses I can engage, the better. And so I'll write the things down to track the understandings that's leading us somewhere. So that could be I'm doing discovery, technical requirements, business requirements, short term, long term. And then maybe we're explaining the options that are available, the pros and the cons. And then maybe we start actually doing an architecture. But along the whole way, make sure we're engaging those multiple senses because it really helps reinforce the understanding, both my understanding and often the customer's understanding as well. So I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, like you say, it's a lot of the time those conversations in themselves can help the customer get to a point where they understand what they actually want or what they need more than they actually thought. And they might come into those meetings going, we know what we need X, Y, and Z to solve A, B, and C. And then at the end of that conversation, it's actually the other way around.
Right. No, 100%. Yep. So always take it that step back.
Cool. So obviously that led you into your current role at Microsoft. So I guess your current role at Microsoft, where does that sit within the organisation? And I guess what's your general remit and day to day look like in that sort of working life?
Yeah, well, I was 5 years for a TSP. Then I went and joined the Microsoft Technology Center as an architect there. So that was very much customer would come into the center and you would spend 2 days with them, 2 or 3 days, and that was it. So it was 2 or 3 days. And again, that helped hone those skills of quickly getting down to what they cared about. And it was all, we had whiteboards everywhere, and you would help
Yeah,
architect possible solutions to their problems. So I was 5 years an MTC architect. And then I went and become a cloud solutions architect for a set of very specific customers, which again was about helping understand what they were trying to do and solving it. And I actually changed roles 3 weeks ago.
yeah,
So I
yeah. I
have
saw that.
just joined the office of the CTO of the Americas as an enterprise architect. So I think I'm employee number 2. So we have the CTO, Lara, and me, and then we're going to hire other architects into the group. And I think we're trying to work out exactly what my remit there and what the office of the CTO's remit is. But if you think about it, I think there's a number of clear channels that we will want to do. I mean, number one, very strategic customers. It could be deal size, it could be visibility, it could be some pain point. Helping the customer. How do we facilitate helping the customer and driving their success? So that's going to be a huge part of what we want to do. But I think there'll also be about how do we help the Microsoft field, understanding and like a beacon of excellence for them from a technology perspective and a process perspective. And then I think acting as a voice to product groups, like how do we take what the customers need and the field and amplify that to the product groups to help drive what we do. So I think it's all about improving and helping the customers and helping the field. So I think that it's an exciting time, and it's kind of in a startup mode. So we'll help actually get to decide what is the best things we can do, what is the most useful set of actions that brings value to the customer, that brings value to the organization. So I'm excited about the new opportunity.
No, it definitely does sound exciting. Like you say, I think to have your own sort of destiny in your hands with yourself and Laura by the sounds of it, and being able to mould what that looks like, sounds like it's going to be an exciting time for you over the next couple of years. Um,
Definitely.
Obviously, a lot of people in the Microsoft world know you because of your YouTube channel and your videos and LinkedIn, etc. Obviously, we've already spoken about where that almost started, and NTF, NTA,
FAQ. Yeah.
NTFAQ,
Frequently asked questions. Yeah.
and that sort of blog style. Where did that sort of start to transition into what it looks like today?
Yeah. So it must have been maybe 5 years ago when I took the role as a CSA for this set of customers. At the MTC, you were in the office every day. And so I did
Yeah,
videos here and there. But then when I transitioned to working from home, suddenly I saved that commute time. Like I had extra time. And I was finding with things like the cloud, the rapid technology changes, like books for me didn't work very well for those sorts of things. It changes too rapidly. And I didn't
yeah,
enjoy it. I didn't really ever enjoy writing books. It's something I did, but I never really enjoyed the process of writing the book. And so I just started as a hobby creating the videos. And again, initially it was to help explain concepts that were in a book or in a magazine article. Then I quickly kind of pivoted to, well, this could be the main thing. And it seemed very effective. And again, I had worked on whiteboarding in the MTC for 5 years. That's all I would do to all my customers. I'd whiteboard. I fell in love with that as a process. So I went and bought myself a big, originally it was a 55-inch Dell Interactive. Then I bought the 75-inch Dell Interactive. I built my own machine to connect it up to. And I just enjoyed creating the content. And there were two aspects to it. So one is if you want to teach someone something, you have to learn it to a level beyond that. So it helps your own learning. So it helped me learn things. And then the second part is I really believe you have to give something back. Like you have to try and help others. Now, everyone helps in different ways. It might be you coach Little League. It might be you help your neighbor. It might be you volunteer at charity. There's no right or wrong for anything. For me, it seemed like I could help people by teaching things. And that's why I don't have any advertising on the channel. Like if I had advertising on it and I'm earning money from it, there's nothing wrong with people that do put advertising on it. Totally get it. There's an investment of time and resources to do it. But I wanted it to purely be something I'm doing to help other people. So I didn't want to earn from it. So that's why there's no advertising. I think it gets in the way a little bit of potential things as well. And so I just started investing. That became my hobby, is creating these YouTube channels and the content. And it's probably 2 or 3 videos a week now. And I pick a topic. Maybe it's something I'm doing for a customer. Maybe it's something I'm just really interested in and I want to learn it better. So I'll pick something. And it has grown. So as it gets bigger and bigger, the expectations change a little bit. And it is a hobby. It's nothing to do with my day job at Microsoft. But that line starts to slightly blur as it becomes more popular and it becomes this place a lot of people go. So there are now many times a product group will ping me. They were like, hey, we would like you to create a video on this for our technology or help amplify that. And if it's something that I want to do, then I mean, it helps in a way because now I'm plugged in directly to the product groups. So it helps me do the research so I can now go and create the video and it'll be a high quality content. Like when I get to speak to the people writing it, it just helps my understanding, which helps me create a better video. So it's a fantastic opportunity for me. So that's how it really has evolved. It's still my hobby. I still create the videos mostly on Sunday mornings. I get up at 3 a.m. on Sundays and I go and work on the channel for 5-6 hours. Sometimes I'll record a video on Tuesday morning before work. The Azure update I record on Friday morning before work. It's a hobby thing, but I enjoy doing it. It's cool to help people.
And how quickly did it sort of grow once you started, consistently pushing videos out? Did it quite rapidly accelerate? Was it a slow, steady build to its current state? What did that look like?
Slow, steady. No, I mean, it's been a very steady build. I mean, I think when you don't have adverts on it, I don't know if it harms the algorithm a little bit, but I don't think you get quite the same attraction drawn to you as part of the whatever algorithm they use. And like you'll notice on my newer videos, I don't even say anymore at the start or the end, please like and subscribe. At the end of the videos, there's just a static thing that says like, subscribe, but I don't say it anymore. I don't do a separate thing anymore. I'm happy where it is. I don't have any burning desire to try and force any more growth from it. But it was very steady. I mean, it ticks along. There wasn't some big explosion at any one point. It's just a very gradual increase over time. And it is almost like a straight line. You could almost just draw the points through it, and nothing explosive there.
No, definitely. And I think probably where it's at now, my view would be, I mentioned to it when I reach out to you, when I talk and I spend my life talking to Azure engineers and architects and consultants, everyone goes to your videos, especially when they're going through the certification side of things, as a way to sort of grow and learn. I guess for you, what would you say the key sort of purposes or key values of the YouTube channel? What does it give to the community from your perspective?
Sure, I think it's just a way of learning. Like I would never say it's the best way of learning. I don't think there is a best. I think everyone is different and some people respond well to one type of medium and one style, others respond to another one. So I think what I offer is an option for learning. It's not the most scripted. I don't edit the videos. It's me standing up there and you'll see me sometimes make mistakes. Like, oh, that's not right. I need to come and change that. It's a very just natural set of interactions as part of it. But I think it's a way that obviously quite a lot of people must respond to. It does work for them. It is a way for them to understand. Because I think in a lot of ways, if you think of school, how did we learn there? It's that constant, and I talked about it at the start, like I think you need multiple senses engaged. I think if you just hear something, that's okay. But if you hear something and you see something, that's a lot better. And the problem with PowerPoint, like I'm not a PowerPoint person. I think PowerPoint can be great if you use it correctly, but a lot of people don't. Like a lot of people will create a slide and the slide will just go up on the screen, and it has 6 bullet points. And then over the next 5 minutes, they'll speak to the 6 bullet points. But when that slide goes up, your eyes instantly read all 6 bullet points. You're not listening to the
Yeah.
person. And then for the next 5 minutes, you're just listening to the person, and the visual is pointless. If you actually have the PowerPoint animated and the points come up on the screen as you start talking about it, then that's far more useful. And I see the value in that. But the thing I like about the whiteboarding is it lets me be flexible. I can get and draw the things, and I can, if my brain goes, well, wait, maybe I should explain this bit, I can go and update the drawing, and I can change the thing. So I think it's a style that people can relate to, and it's fairly easy to consume. I know a lot of people will say, oh, I run it at 1.5 speed. I speak at a certain cadence because realize not everyone has English as their native language. And so I actually have slowed myself down deliberately over time. My earlier videos, I spoke a lot faster, but I've deliberately slowed my language down so that people that it isn't their native language, they can process it. So for people that native English speakers, it's a natural language. Yep, you can run at 1.25 or 1.5. That's fine. But it's a deliberate thing so that it makes it easier for everyone to be able to consume. So that's the point around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned obviously one of the catalysts almost for you moving towards video as a platform and away from maybe more static information like books is the rapid rate of change within cloud technologies and within Azure. How do you keep up with that rate of change, and what are your resources that you use to sort of keep on top of all of that? Because it's, let's be honest, it's every day, isn't it? By the hour.
Right. I mean, it's difficult. And I'll be the first to say, I don't believe anyone can know everything. Like sometimes you'll meet someone, and they're like, yeah, I know all of Azure, and I know all of AWS, and I know all of GCP. And I'm like, you don't. You just don't. I don't believe anyone even knows all of Azure. Like, I don't believe it's possible. Maybe that's my own limitations, and others could prove me wrong, and they're genius on everything. But I think for most people, you're going to pick a certain area where you'll be deep on. You'll understand that technology really well. And then what you need is a basic understanding of the other areas, just so you understand, well, when do I need to call in this team member? Where should I think about using this technology to enhance what I'm trying to do with my project? Or, hey, what I'm an expert in is actually not the right solution here. I know there's something better over there. Let's bring in those people. So I try and stay very deep in things like identity, security, the infrastructure, some of the now a bit more the AI. So I cover quite a lot of different things. The way I stay up to date is obviously I do the Azure update. So the Azure update, and I'm used the Microsoft feeds for that to see what's changing. And I'll go and look at, okay, well, what's enhanced, what's changing in those areas, and I may go and dig into it. If I see some big new announcement about a new technology, I'll go and dig into it and work out what is its value. Again, it's great to understand the technologies, and I love to understand the technologies, but just understanding the technology on its own, I think is pretty useless. You need to understand what is the problem it's solving and what is the value to the client, the customer will get out of that to know, is this something I should be proposing? Is this something I need to put into the architecture? And so I'll always try and, yes, understand what makes it tick. If you understand what makes it tick, how it works underneath, then I can start to understand how it can process and what it can do. But then what is the problem it's solving? You always think of the ShamWow. With ShamWow, it's like, oh, no, I've spilt this. What do I do now? Oh, never mind. I've got ShamWow. So I always try and think about, well, what is the spill? What is the problem that this will help me solve? And that's what I try and do. And again, as I mentioned, it's got easier for me now because of the success of the channel. I tend to now get most of the product groups reaching out to me because they want me to learn their thing and they want me to create a video on it. So my life has got simpler from that perspective. But primarily it's the Microsoft Learn documentation. I'll look at blogs. Sometimes there'll be some video that some specialist has created. I may watch that. I don't subscribe to just this is the thing. Leave yourself open to whatever is available and try different mediums, try different opinions on things, and then you make your own. So I'll consume whatever I can.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about the Microsoft ecosystem is that it has got a super engaged and collaborative community, hasn't it?
Yep.
You know, you look globally at the MVP communities and the partner network and all of these different parts, user groups, all of these moving parts of the ecosystem help fuel the wider knowledge within the whole community.
100%. I mean, I think again, it's choices, right? And that's why I was kind of saying, like, there are so many people out there who want to share and help others. I think it's a fantastic time. So we talked sometimes about technology, but I think the internet and the blogs and the YouTubes and whatever the podcasts of the world, it's now made it so fantastic for everyone who wants to learn. There's so many choices out there. There's so many different things I can go and look at and find what works for me. And so, no, I think it's an amazing time. Like, we think, yes, technology is changing so rapidly and it's scary, but it's also, it enables so many different opportunities to learn. And then you look at generative AI, think of using that the right way. If we we give it the right sources, we work out the right prompts and maybe the bit of tuning, we can each have a personal tutor to help us understand and again explain things in the way and challenge us and work on those things. And there are organizations out there right now doing exactly that. How can we use generative AI to act as a personal tutor for children, for adults? So no, I think it's amazing. I think it's an exciting time.
No, definitely. I think you mentioned it there. I think for me, one of the biggest things with AI generally, co-pilots or generative AI, I think there's a big learning for all of us in terms of how to interact with it through prompts. I think we've all grown up in a world in the internet where we're used to very simple prompts
Yeah.
and questions into search engines, and I think that feeds into how we interact with AI. And it's learning actually, you know, you can go 10 layers deep with AI in terms of your questioning and scenarios and topics and setting parameters and giving it a real feel for where you want to get to, that I think we've all got to learn how to interact with it on that prompt side of things, haven't we?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's trying to get people past the, yes, find me information on, like, you can be more natural language. And that's this huge explosion that you keep hearing about, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and you hear about embeddings and high dimensional vectors. It's really just all about the idea of helping computers understand the meaning rather than the exact words used. And then once it can understand the semantic meaning, like what you're trying to get at, it can try and find information that's most relevant to that. So there's this whole driving around enabling natural language and then encouraging people to use the natural language. And then when you talk those multimodalities, so now I can use voice. As soon as people can start using voice, I think that will help encourage some of that more natural interactions anyway, because now I'm not typing on a keyboard like a search term. I'm talking to something. And I think that will help people embrace that more natural set of interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually generative AI will replace us, John, and we won't have any podcast or any YouTube channels because it'll all just be Gen AI doing it for us.
Yep. Hey, GPT 8.0, create me a video of some bald guy talking funny, explaining passkey V8, and it will go and spin that thing up for you instantly. So yes, it will replace me. Hopefully, I'll have retired before then. So I just need to make it a bit longer, and then it'll be fine.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, really interested in learning a little bit more about your journey and obviously now what that looks like, both with your role at Microsoft and your hobby on the sort of the YouTube and sort of social media side of things. I'm going to dive in now. I mentioned it at the start to you. We're going to do Microsoft Mentors Quickfire Round. So it's 8 to 10 questions. We're looking for 1 or 2 sentence answers. For you, they're quite close to home in terms of what you do and Microsoft and learning. So most of them will be in there. There's a couple of curveballs in there as well for you to keep you on the toes.
Okay.
I was saying the other day to someone on one of these, I need to come up with a little jingle to go underneath this part of it.
Put the pressure on. That'd be good. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So first question, John, of Microsoft Mentors Quickfire Round. What is your favorite Microsoft product of all time?
Hyper-V.
Hyper-V. I like it. In your opinion, which is the hardest Microsoft certification to pass and why?
I would now. It's also going to be down to the individual. Rapid fire. I would say the data
Sure.
certifications, just because data for me is not my most natural thing that I work with. So I would say when you get into those sort of data experts, for me that is the hardest one because there's some real nuances to all the different data services and how you use them. So for me, data would be the hardest ones to pass.
Yeah, cool. What is your favorite service, tool, or feature available right now in Azure?
Right now, it's going to be the Azure OpenAI models and the Azure AI Studio. I'm having huge amounts of fun playing with how I can hook in the generative AI. And again, the point is, I'm trying to understand what it can do so I can understand the benefit, so I can understand where and when it would make sense. So, but yes, obviously, I think everyone's going to say generative AI. I think there's no one who's going to be like, oh, well, I like the new Kubernetes feature that does certificates. I think AI is going to be the answer to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one or some of the most common mistakes you see people making when using Azure, and how can they be avoided?
Do you know, I think the biggest mistake is you try and use it like a data center. Like you just take what you had and you go and run it in Azure. And probably, yes, you can. But are you going to have governance problems because the order has changed? People go and provision directly. So if you haven't got policy in place and RBAC in place, it's going to be just a zoo. You have to take time to understand the capabilities, understand, hey, can I shift and be more digital native and cloud native and use the capabilities to be optimal? Get the right patterns in place so you're not reinventing the wheel. So I think treating it like a data center, that's the biggest mistake people make.
Yeah, cool. And what would be your top tip for optimizing cost management in Azure?
Do you know, I think the top tip, I mean, fundamentally right now is go and look at Azure Advisor every week. Like Azure Advisor, they've done a phenomenal amount of work that goes and looks at the resources, that understands the size, the configuration, the scaling, and will give you guidance. So the one top tip, use Azure Advisor. Use Azure Advisor for performance, for the reliability, for the operation stuff, for the cost. Go and look at that and pay attention to the things it's saying. So, and that will help drive all of those efficiencies.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Have you got a favorite Microsoft event, in-person Microsoft event?
So I'm the worst person to ask this. I don't really like the in-person events anymore, only because I say I'm a huge introvert. The videos
Yeah,
I seem like very outgoing, and I'm in front of a customer. I am, but I'm not the biggest social butterfly. And so I tend not to do many of the social things because I am more well known now and people kind of will swarm over. But no, I mean, I love obviously like the Ignites. I mean, I was just there. I love those events. It's a place where people can go and learn and connect. So I think, yeah, I mean, the Ignite is a great event.
yeah, awesome. Um, you need to work out. You need to get your daily exercise in. Are you hitting the gym, getting on the bike, or going for a run?
I've finished already. So I was up at 2 a.m. this morning. So I did bike. So it's bike for an hour and a half, then it's weights for an hour and a half. So that's pretty much every day. Pretty much every day is the
Bit of
same
both.
thing.
Cool. Yeah, I did. I recently did. I was doing five days a week running, and that was hard. It's good to have a couple of days rest in there for me, especially for the
Sunday.
running for the knees is the problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't do a lot of running anymore, except other than if it's an event, because my knees
Yeah,
just, yeah, there's so many miles you get on your knees, and I think I've used mine up. So I have to save them for an event now. But cycling is very low impact. So recommend cycling as your knees start hurting.
yeah, absolutely. It's cheat day. You can eat whatever you want, John. On cheat day, what is your guilty go-to food pleasure?
Every day is cheat day for John. So I don't drink. I don't go partying. Food is my vice, and I don't watch my macros. I don't watch what I eat pizza many times a week. I love pizza, cheeseburgers, steak and a baked twice baked potato, pasta, any of those things. But if I had to pick one thing, I guess it would be pizza. Pizza is my thing.
Yeah, good choice. Mine's would always be something sweet. I've got a terrible sweet tooth.
I have a sweet tooth as well. Yeah, yeah.
A debate that we always have on this side of the Atlantic, John, given our sort of pronunciations over here in the UK, is it Azure or Azure?
Do you know, I say Azure now. I did say Azure. So I said Azure initially, but then I realized everyone I was talking to said Azure. And so I changed the way I said it. I think it's Azure, but I now say Azure because everyone expects me to say Azure with the people I interact with. So I would say Azure seems correct to me, but Azure is the way I have to say it now.
Yeah, I think it's just difference in pronunciations either side of the Atlantic, isn't it? And final question of the quickfire on John. We're staying on pronunciation. Is it football or soccer?
Well, again, football is correct. It's football. That's the correct term. But over here, soccer is what they say.
Yeah,
but it's football.
Absolutely. It is, isn't it? It always is. Awesome, John. That was so much fun. I enjoyed the quickfire round there. Some great answers to some sort of key thoughts and ideas that people normally have in Azure. Thanks very much for your time, mate. It's been awesome. I'll leave you to the rest of the day over in the States, and I'm going to sign off in a minute over here in the UK.
Awesome. Well, again, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me, and have a terrific rest of your day.
You too. Cheers, John.